Thank you. We'll now open the meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you for coming this morning. I declare this meeting of the Clermont County Board of Commissioners for 4/17/2019 duly open. We'll start right off with the agenda as prepared. Item number B, approval of regular session minutes. Board, you have had a draft copy of those minutes since Friday and had the opportunity to review them. Do you have any comments or suggestions that you need to make on those minutes?
Nope.
I'd entertain an approval, a motion for approval.
So moved.
I'll second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number C, it's my understanding that Steve Ash is here this morning with Rand Associates, and I understand you have an update for us on the current medical plan. Thank you.
Thank you. So as Commissioner Painter mentioned, my name is Steve Ash. I'm the VP of Account Management at Horan. So we're here to give you an update on the plan performance. So one of the things we like to do every year is just identify trends and patterns within the claims and utilization on an aggregate basis to help us then put together various strategies to look at throughout the course of the year to try and mitigate claims costs and keep expenses as low as possible. Before we get into the year over year, though, we like to give a quick update as to where we're at year to date through 2019. So we only have January data right now, and with this chart, there's a lot of numbers going on. Essentially, it goes over the actual enrollment counts, the fixed costs such as admin and stop loss, the actual claims, and then how did that compare to our projected costs. So if you look over in the far right under those maroonish red type columns, you can see January says 176%. That means that January ran at 176% of what we expected it to run at. Now, there is an explanation for that. So if you drop down and you look in that peach area, you can see less estimated stop loss. We had a claimant that nearly hit $1 million that was paid in January. So the county has received, or is in the process of receiving, about $714,000 in stop loss reimbursement just through 1 month. When you get that stop loss reimbursement out, you can see there in that yellowish bar, the plan actually performed at about 112% of total expected cost when you take out the stop loss reimbursement. So a bit of a shock in the very beginning of the year. One thing to note, though, is that $1 million claimant, is a little bit of an anomaly when you have a large claimant like that. If you were to net that entire claim out and that claim just never even happened, you would actually be running at 89% of total expected. So you would actually be running below what we'd expect you to run at.
In that claim goes how many months back into the previous year?
August.
Okay.
So it did take a little bit of time to process, unfortunately, but we have a stop loss contract to protect us from those types of claims.
Thank you.
Can you talk a little bit about that process and kind of that situation, because it was kind of a unique situation, something that we looked at and we're trying to maybe look to see if there's anything we can do the following year with our stop loss contracts to address that situation?
Yeah. So the process, typically you're not going to see a claim take as long to process. If it's incurred in August, you expect that to pay in the previous plan year. This was a bit of a unique situation. The larger claims will take a little bit of time to flush out, but again, having it incurred in August, that's a little bit longer than we would even expect. So what had happened is this was obviously a very large claimant, a lot of complexities within this claimant. So when they submitted the claim, it actually went to the provider submitted the claim, it actually went to the wrong carrier, essentially. Went to Optum instead of UHC, so they had to kick it back to the provider. The provider then, took a few weeks. They resubmitted it. It gets scrubbed and paid as quickly as possible through UHC, and unfortunately, that just happened to be in early January, the way that process went. So it was a lot longer. So we have obviously discussed this in great length and tried to make sure that we're doing everything we can and that our carrier partners are doing everything that they can. So we're just looking to see if there's something we can enhance the following year. The hard part is, though, when there's a carrier sitting at the provider or the facility, United Healthcare may not know that, or they don't know that. If there's a large claim that's just sitting there, they may not have insights on that until it actually hits their desk, and then the claims processors process it. But right when they process it, things are paid. So we're trying to figure out a way for us to get greater insight towards the end of the year, just in case there was another situation like this. We could maybe reach out to a facility and say, hey, is there any way to make sure that this gets submitted? Ultimately, the providers have 12 months to submit a claim. So they didn't do anything wrong. It's part of their process. And like I said, when there's claims of this magnitude, they can take a little bit longer to flush through. This was probably a little bit on the exception of just how long it took.
So the provider could have waited 12 months to submit it, so
Yeah.
it could have came in 2019 anyway.
Correct. Yep, it could have come in February, it could have come in March.
Okay.
Yes, or even a little bit later than that. So again, shock loss claim in January, however, if that claim did not incur, the plan would actually be performing really well. I mentioned when we look at data, we typically look at that to drive strategies. One of the things that we look at last year is this report that we'll get into, which helped drive several plan change strategies that we put in place for 2019. So we just wanted to recap a few of those. We have those listed. I know we went over these in great detail last year during the enrollment process. Ultimately, these were the recommendations by HR and the Healthcare Advisory Committee to help mitigate costs in a strategic way. Some of these were made, again, to help streamline the plan and make it easier on the end user. But again, other ones were also put in place to help mitigate potential future costs. So things that we haven't even incurred yet, but we just want to make sure we're staying ahead of the game. And then some of them were put into place because of some of the claims and utilization that we saw. This one in particular, we did the shoulder, joint, and spine bundling through UHC by partnering with the Christ Hospital. And this is members will actually have a lower deductible if they go to the Christ Hospital for certain procedures, and it will be at a lower price at a higher quality. So we see your musculoskeletal spend as one of your largest drivers every year. So this is one of the ways to kind of attack that and see if we can't mitigate costs going in the future, as well as provide a little bit of enhancement to the members. Just a quick recap on the plan changes. Now we'll get into the actual plan performance review. So this is, like we like to call it, it's our deep dive into the claims and utilization on an aggregate level. So we do this every year. This just helps us identify cost drivers and utilization patterns. You know, it's very important for us to understand what's occurring within the plan, the health of the population, so we can then make strategic decisions, strategic plan design changes to help impact that and try to mitigate costs as best we can. The reporting's really broken out almost into 5 chapters, if you will. Those are listed there. Financials, demographic and risk, conditions, utilization, and prescription drug. We review, the review is provided with supplementary reporting, so we do provide that monthly report, which was the first slide that I showed you, just so we can track the financials as well. So I'm going to jump into the financials within that plan performance review. So this is, again, chapter 1. So at the very top, you can see we do break out the financials. The very first line is total claims. We then break it out by medical claims, RX claims, and then the net total claims, this is an adjustment for anything received in stop loss. So for large catastrophic claims that go over the specific deductible. You can see there was a decent increase in total net claims on the left-hand side. You can see on the right-hand side, we then break it out on a per employee per month basis. That's the PEPM there. And we like to do that to take into consideration any fluctuations in enrollment. So 18 over 17, you know, as we were tracking it throughout 18, we knew it was a pretty high year. We had some large claims, and I'll get into some of the additional drivers throughout the course of this report. A couple of notes there at the bottom. Prospective claims for your top 30 large claimants in 2018 are expected to decrease by almost half. So that is good news, and that's just indicating improved condition status as well as care management for that population. So we obviously like to see the prospective viewpoint for your top 30 improve. One other thing to note, one of the big drivers and kind of the themes we saw in 18 is those large claimants really spiking the overall cost. Your top 5 claimants actually all exceeded $300,000, and they accounted for $1.8 million in spend for just those top 5 individuals. Something else we look at is you had 5% of your population driving about 66% of your total claims. That's not that far out of line, probably a little bit high in the percent of total claims piece, but it just gives you some insights as to what's driving the overall plan costs. So if we move to chapter 2, this is your demographic and /risk. And again, these are just some of the snippets and high-level pieces that we take out of this reporting. It is about a 31-page report that we go through with HR and the Healthcare Advisory Committee looking at these. So this is some of the top-line information. Your average member age is 34.8, and it's slightly higher than 34.3. I think as we all know, as you age, you typically spend more in medical and prescription drug claims, so having that lower average age is maybe a little bit indicative of whether you're going to have a better claims year, and if you're a little bit higher, it may be the opposite. So we are slightly higher than the norm on the average member age. Prospective risk score is expected to improve. So again, that's good. We have a tool that looks at the current risk factors within the population, and then what is that going to do next year? And because it is looking to improve next year, that's hopefully, again, indicative of some future better claims in 2019. One of the themes that we've seen throughout the course of the past several years is spousal claims are pretty high, and they drive a decent amount of the overall costs. You can see in a per member per year, spousal claims actually increased again, 27%. You can see the dollar figures there, and that's 37% above the norm or the benchmark. So if you recall, several years ago, we did put in a spousal surcharge, and this was one of the reasons. Again, we look at the data and try to make decisions that will help improve overall costs. And that chart below just outlines the average employee spend, spouse spend, dependent spend. You can see on the far right there, we compare what the averages are to the norm, so that gold bar. You can see the employee spend is just slightly above the norm. Spousal, as I mentioned, is significantly above the norm, and your dependent spend is actually really good. It's actually below the norms by 1.1%. Next are the conditions. So what conditions may be prevalent within the county population and those enrolled in the medical plan? You can see musculoskeletal, that's the most expensive condition category. You know, we mentioned we put in that Tri-Health spine and joint bundling program to help try to attack this spend and improve it. Claims increased 9.6% or $165,000 over the last 12 months. And we actually saw the number of claimants decrease. So you would think if you had less claimants, you'd have less spend, but we had the opposite. We had more spend with less claimants, so the severity of the conditions within that bucket got a little bit worse. So again, that's another reason we put that program in. You can see that in the chart below. We just list your top 5 condition categories, and you have that musculoskeletal spend. Obviously a lot of numbers in there, but when you see the red, that is your prior, the blue is the current, and then we give you the percent change. We give you the claimants in that first section, total paid claims, paid per claimant. So again, we always like to do a per claimant piece just in case there's fluctuations in the enrollment. And then on the far right, current versus the norm. In general, your chronic population is about 5 times costlier than your non-chronic and 3.6 times riskier than the non-chronic population. So we have programs in place with UHC that help out with the disease management and chronic condition care. We've put together some engagement plans with the help of Yvonne and our team to help make this apparent to the employee population. So if they're getting an outreach call from UHC, a lot of times it's to help engage them and help them with maybe something that they're struggling with or something that they're dealing with. So we're trying to make sure that there's awareness within a lot of the great programs that are out there and offered. In addition, the chronic population accounts for 66% of your total claims, and that is up from 56% in the prior period. So we're seeing the chronic membership or the chronic spend increase a little bit, with the membership actually staying about the same.
Steve, talk about that 451% there that's showing. Percent change.
So that is likely a large claimant. That's going to be kind of a one-time hit. So the neonates is going to be birth. So that is a kind of a one-time hit, and that's why you can see the same number of claimants, but there was just a large claimant within that, kind of spiking that paid per claimant percentage.
Okay.
So next, utilization. So where are members receiving care, and are they receiving their preventive care? Again, a few years ago, one of the programs we put in place was the Primary Care Physician Initiative, trying to encourage employees and spouses to meet with their primary care physicians to make sure they're getting the appropriate care and managing any conditions that they may have presenting themselves. What we see and what we saw and what we continue to see is your preventive visits are extremely high. They're at 70%, which is well above the norm of 57%. So the program is working and it's doing what we intended it to do. And again, part of that is just hoping members engage in their health care and they understand what's going on within their own bodies so they can then take care of it. One of the new metrics we're able to measure is the quality of care compliance is strong across several measurables, and you can see that in the chart there. So we're basically looking at age and gender appropriate utilization, and are they getting the necessary age and gender appropriate services, and across the board you are much higher than the norms as well. We would think that would go hand in hand with those preventive visits, so I don't see anybody with this high of compliancy within these, and again I think it is because of the high percentage of PCP utilization that goes along with that, so they go hand in hand. So that is good news. Hopefully that will flush out as the better claims here in the future. Next is prescription drugs, so just a couple bullets there. You have new utilization on 3 brand drugs, and you can see the names there, and they account for about $269,000 of total RX spend, or about 90% of the increase that we saw in the RX. So we saw the RX increase by double digits, but we identified 3 drugs that were brand new in 2018 that made up 90% of that spend. So that's a great that's an explanation for why that did spike. Within the county, we do see members fill about 15% more scripts compared to the norm. When we put that primary care physician initiative in, we did see that increase a little bit, but that's what we would say is good spend, because you essentially had members that may not have understood they had any sort of chronic conditions. When they met with their primary care physician, they then understand that, and now they're taking care of themselves. So it's not necessarily a bad thing. The other great thing that we see in your utilization, that bottom graph there, is the percent generic. You can see in the prior period, that red bar, it was 85.4% of all drugs filled were generic. That went all the way up to 86.9% are generic. So because you have such high generic utilization, the paid per script is actually below the norm. So while you fill more, you're filling them at a less costly per script fill. So that is very, very good. So anytime we look at this, we always like to just put together a few focus areas, some things we want to try to do in this year and next year. One of the ones that we had mentioned was creating an employee engagement plan, just to help educate members on the consumerism tools, and current strategies and programs in place, like that Christ Hospital bundling program, again, to improve overall claim spend, as well as just member education. You know, if you can change somebody's behavior and change the way they're going to use the actual medical plan, instead of going to their emergency room, they're going to urgent care, all of those things go into the overall total spend and will improve. So Vaughn's done a great job of always helping with that communication. We're just trying to see if we can ramp that up a little bit more with a plan in place, and to help make it more turnkey. And again, if you improve that utilization, that's going to improve the overall spend. We also have several unique communication techniques. There's these POW tunes, which are these really neat kind of cartoon videos that are about a minute long and pretty engaging. So to try to engage people in different ways. You know, if you just keep sending them an email or posting a piece of paper, it might get stale. So we're trying different ways to engage the population. Focus area number 2, something we've talked about before, but this past year, putting in that new program I've referenced several times will help improve this as well. But just continued communication around Erosti. We've talked about them. They try to impact musculoskeletal spend for the members. They try to only limit the amount of times they're going to see a member to 4 times before they either fix it, and then teach you methods to keep whatever it is at bay. Or else they will tell you initially, listen, I don't know if we can fix this. This may require surgery. So they have some great stats where they have about 30% reduction in the amount of surgeries that they have for these types of things. So just making sure members are aware of Erosti. They now have a location that's actually fairly close to here. And then also recommunicating that Christ Hospital program to impact that $1.8 million in claim spend. So I think we communicate these programs, like the Christ Hospital program in October during open enrollment. We all know there's a lot of communication at open enrollment, so we just need to do a good job reiterating these programs so people don't forget about them. So if and when they use the plan, they remember it. The other thing I mentioned is one of the themes that we saw was just the large claim frequency and severity has increased, and we just want to monitor that moving forward because we know the impacts, the costs are great when you have these types of claims. That chart, what's going on down there is we like to look at the various claims threshold. So you can see on the right how many had 25,000, how many passed the 50,000 mark, how many claimants passed the 75,000 mark, all the way up to $1 million. You can see how many you had in 2017, how many you have in 2018, and then what the benchmarks are. If it's highlighted red, that's higher than the benchmark. So you can see the amount of people that hit 25,000 last year in 2017 was 90 2018 was 83, so that actually improved. However, it's slightly higher than the benchmark. And then you can tell that that trend kind of flipped. The amount of members that were at 25,000 was 83. 39 of those went to $50,000. 27 of those then exceeded $75,000, so on and so forth. And if you compare the 2018 to 2019 or 2017 column, you can see those spiked quite a bit. 2017, we didn't have a single claimant exceed $250,000. We had 5 in 2018. And then 5 of those actually went past $300,000. And we would expect a group your size to have 1.8 over $300,000. So good amount going on in that chart, but it's very insightful.
So are these add-ons? So if is the 5 contained in the 300,000 in the 250, or?
Yes, they're the same people. So of those 5 in the 250, those same 5 exceeded 300.
Okay.
It's not new. Good question. So I know that was pretty high level, but it was also a lot of information. We just like to give you some top line insights, again, on the claims and utilization. Again, it's something that we monitor on a regular basis to try to drive the strategies and, again, keep the costs as contained as possible. Are there any other questions? Well, thank you very much.
Steve, great job. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate
You
it.
bet. We will move on to item C. If there are no further presentations, Tom?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Item C, public participation. If there's anyone here that would like to participate during public participation, we welcome that. Is there anyone here who'd like to address the board? Chris, you may address the board. During this time, the board does not answer questions nor engage in the debate. The commissioners are not expected to comment on matters brought to the board during this time. Each speaker will only speak once and be recognized by the board president before speaking. In accordance with the board's rules and procedures, your comments are limited to 5 minutes. You have the floor.
Thank you, Commissioner Painter. I'm Chris Hicks from 444 Woodward Court. And I want to give a shout out before the meeting starts. You guys have a prayer. And Jason Bowman from Solid Rock Church led that prayer. And I thought I'd come to a lot of these meetings. It's probably the best one I've heard because he talked about stewardship. He talked about leaders having wisdom. He talked about financial accountability. He talked about things that I think are important for us in a position of humility. So I'm here. I want to talk about what's going on with the Port Authority and FC Cincinnati. Let's just take a quick status check on where we are. For 6 months, over 6 months now, we've been collecting an increased hotel tax to fund bonds that do not exist. For land that we fake own as a county that involved no public funds, was double transferred through Milford because that's the only way you can legally transfer land to a port authority, and has rights of rescission built into it so that at any point in time, FC Cincinnati can say we're not using the land for the intended purposes, and it immediately reverts to their ownership. It's fake ownership of land. And we got a bunch of more revisions coming, including revisions that went through Milford Council last night. I gave you guys a copy of this flyer. It's meant to be a satire about the birding rash. What happens when places get affected with the birding rash? They start increasing taxes. They start lobbying for bragging rights for economic projects that never pay off. There's a couple, Keith, my wife does a lot of this stuff, and there's a couple I think particularly fun points on here. The guy with the wheelbarrow saying, here's tax money for your privately funded project. Or on the back, a guy holding his head saying, why do I feel like taking somebody else's money and giving it to a rich person? Or down below, 2 guys talking saying, why negotiate when we can just raise their taxes? So that's meant as a satire on what we have that I'd like to see stopped in our county, which is outbreaks of the birding rash, where we increase taxes when we campaigned on platforms of not increasing taxes. When we talked in our campaigns about opening CVB books, but then we take no action whatsoever to actually let citizens be able to see who was paid and enriched. So what happened that I think you guys should really consider before anything else happens last August. In August, you had a forum, and Commissioner Humphrey, you said you felt good voting yes for FCC because the schools had approved the deal. We have George Lucas, who's the board chair for Milford Schools, saying they had on camera that it was a take it or leave it situation. They had no opportunity to negotiate. It's kind of funny because in Cincinnati they negotiated pretty good. The Democrats in Cincinnati negotiated more than we did. When at the same time, I just have emails now that I've gotten from July 12th and August 15th of last year saying that the commissioners would not even consider increasing the hotel tax unless the school agreed beforehand. The schools had tremendous leverage. They got built. It's costing the kids a lot of money. And as you know, there's a bond levy asking for the maximum legal amount that can be borrowed in Milford that's going on right now. FC Cincinnati should have paid at least half of the taxes that were going to be due under this agreement. And now they're in a position solely because of action by the commissioners and the Port Authority to pay nothing while supposedly kids have needs. Now today at 2 o'clock the Port Authority meets. The agreement that's on their agenda to be considered was only approved last night by Milford. It was only publicly available yesterday in Milford. Who's looked at it? Who's read it? What public has had a chance to even see these new changes? I haven't. I actually have them. I got them via records request, not because they're posted anywhere. I haven't even had a chance to read them. Okay, but at 2 o'clock today, our Port Authority is supposed to approve this. I say stop it. Stop it. With the 6 months of taxes sitting in an escrow type account, with realizing that the schools were bilked and told that there was a take it or leave it deal when you guys would not have considered the deal had they not pre-approved, it's time to step back a little bit. It's also time to make sure that the citizens have a chance to see agreements before they're passed and approved. Last year, on December 10th, the Port Authority approved an agreement. They met on December 18th. They never discussed the meeting on the agreement on December 18th. Sam DeBonis and Andy Kupta just signed the agreement. There was no discussion, no vote, no anything. At least I'm glad to see it's on the agenda. But we need to stop these things. We need to show some spine. We need to use the opportunities that we have to negotiate to negotiate. That's what happened in Cincinnati. Every step of the way, people stood up for the rights of their constituencies. It's time for us to stand up for the rights of our taxpayers. Now, there's people on this commission. Everybody knows that I am a pro-Trump person. And there's people on this commission that say they're pro-Trump people. Maybe all of you say you're pro-Trump people. This is art of the deal. This is art of the deal. Okay? What kind of deal have we struck for our constituents? Our constituents are the taxpayers, not Jeff Birding. Okay? Our financial responsibility is about good deals, not bragging rights, which was said a lot in the top-out ceremony the other day. Bragging rights. That's what's so great about this deal is we get bragging rights. So I have purchased this book to give to Commissioner Painter, and you have to share it with the other commissioners, okay? I don't know that you guys have read it. You should. You should. Okay? Let's negotiate a little bit while we have the opportunity with FC Cincinnati. Let's negotiate. Let's make sure that the Port Authority that's under the auspices of the commissioners doesn't go running half-cocked into approving deals when nobody's looking in meetings that nobody knows about for agendas that I just got today for the meeting on agreements that nobody's had a chance to review. So I thank you for the chance to participate. And as I walk away, Commissioner Painter, this is my gift to you. Share it with your colleagues. I encourage you to read. I encourage everybody in government should read this book, Art of the Deal. Thank you guys very much for the chance to talk.
Thanks for coming today. Thanks for the present.
Thank you.
Good to
Thanks,
see
sir.
you. You bet. Anyone else wish to participate during public participation? Then I'll move on with the agenda. We are at item number E. Consent agenda has been prepared for you. I know board members, you've had a chance to review the draft of that consent agenda. Are there any items that you would like to remove from the consent agenda for further consideration or discussion?
No.
Hearing none, I'll request a motion for approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Judy?
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Proud? I'm sorry, Mr. Painter.
I like it. That was good. That was good. I like that.
Mr. Proud. Sorry about that, buddy.
Yes. We will move to item number F, the non-consent agenda. Starts on page 5. Item number 9, recommendation that the Board of Commissioners adopt resolution number 043-19, resolving to approve payment to vendors in the amount of $2,294,314.44 as set forth in the BCC approval invoice reports for checks dated April 17th, 2019, BCC directed prepaid invoice report, procurement card transaction report presented by the county auditor on 4/15/2019, and further authorizing the county auditor to issue warrants for the same pursuant to Section 319.16 of the Ohio Revised Code. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 10.
I apologize, Mr. Cascaden had another meeting, so I agreed to take number 10 for him, if you don't mind. Number 10 is a recommendation from John Cascaden, Director of Public Safety Services, with a concurrence of Mr. Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to execute extension number 1 to the contract for services for HVAC maintenance and repair services for the HVAC equipment located at the Clermont County Tower sites by and between the Board of County Commissioners and Peck, Hannaford, and Briggs Service Corporation, which was previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 1/31/2018, with said said extension number 1 to extend contract for services for an additional period of 1 year through May 10th, 2020. Pursuant to Article 14 of the contract for services at an estimated annual cost of $9,000 plus any additional repairs as needed, with all of the terms and conditions set forth in the original contract for services and amendments thereto to remain in full force and effect and contingent upon the release and receipt of the purchase order required, therefore in concert with requisition number 2641 dated 3/15/2019 relative thereto. These are for your 800 megahertz communication towers for the HVAC. If I may add, we started replacing the HVAC systems last year, and about a third of the systems, so they have that redundancy, if you will, 2 Marvair units per location.
Okay.
Okay.
And when you're talking Marvair units, you're talking about the hang-on units on each
Hang-on
end.
units that you see on the, if you've ever gone by a school that has a temporary facility, they have the hang-on units in the temporary housing that they have for students, same units.
The nice thing about those is when you replace them, you get everything new in one package.
And it's all there. It's literally hang it and go away.
Yep. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 10. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 11.
Morning, Brandon Hepner, Director of Information Systems Department. It's my recommendation, with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to authorize David L. Painter, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute Spectrum Customer Service Order 111-66526 by and between Clermont County and Charter Communications, in concert with the Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement for the provision of TV services, voice services, fiber, internet access services, Ethernet services, internet services, and managed Wi-Fi services for Clermont County agencies, departments, and offices previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on 2/25/19, with the customer service order to provide coax internet for Women, Infant, and Children WIC office located at the Clermont Family Support Center at the rate of $139.97 per month plus applicable regulatory fees, and with a $99 one-time internet charge of service fee pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions as set forth in a stated Spectrum Enterprise Service Agreement.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 11. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Brandon. Item number 12.
I'm back.
You're back.
I'm back. Item number 12 is my recommendation, Wade Grabowski, Director of Clermont County Facilities Management, with the concurrence of Mr. Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to execute a contract for minor public improvement projects by and between the Board of County Commissioners, Clermont County, and Shaw Contract Flooring, which are doing business as Spectre Contract Flooring, Laughlin, Ohio, for the furnishing and installation of carpet for the Clermont County Department of Job and Family Services located in the Clermont County Family Support Center, 2400 Clermont Center Drive, Batavia, in accordance with the scope of services identified in Exhibit A, attached thereto and may be part thereof, in an amount not to exceed $94,549.93, with said services to be completed within 90 days of the company's receipt of a signed contract and notice to proceed from the Clermont County Facilities Management Department, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein, contingent upon the release of the purchase order required therefore, with the requisition number 2572 dated 3/12/2019 relative thereto.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 12. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Wade, you have any? I know that's a lot of carpet.
A lot of carpet.
What are you carpeting over there?
Actually, this is the first floor. We did the second floor, which was Children's Protective Services, and Children's Protective Services has the whole second floor. That was done last year, so we're doing this in phases based on our capital budget. This will do the downstairs, which is DJFS, and this does not include child support. That'll be the third phase, which will happen next year. Okay, so we're at our 15th year on some of this carpet, and some is approaching 21 years, I believe. Believe it or not, the first renovation that I did 26 years ago, or 5 years, was the downstairs to the Department of Job and Family Services. Has an old Stevens Durapoint carpet down there. It looks kind of funky, so it's time. And in actuality, we have a pre-installation meeting this Friday, provided the board is okay with this, with the actual installation starting next week. So,
Okay. Thank you.
thank you.
Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thanks, Wade. Item number 13.
Good morning.
Morning, John.
It's a recommendation of myself, John Raymond, Director of the Clermont Transportation Connection, with the concurrence of Mr. Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to authorize David L. Painter, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute the 2019 U.S. DOT Motor Carrier Identification Biennial Update with the U.S. Department of Transportation, Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration of Washington, D.C., for U.S. Department of Transportation number 1063916, relative to the operation of interstate transportation services for calendar year 2019, pursuant to and in compliance with the terms and conditions set forth therein. So we're required every 2 years to provide an update on how many vehicles we're operating and how many drivers we have, because we provide transportation from Ohio through Kentucky to Cincinnati. And this is that update.
And is that just the number of vehicles that we use to travel through Ohio, Kentucky, and Indiana, or is that as a total?
It's our total vehicle number.
Okay. And just for everyone here, what is that total vehicle number?
Currently, it is 30.
30. Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 13.
I'm sorry, currently it's
26.
I apologize.
Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thanks, John. Item number 14. Hi, Pam.
Pam Haverkos, Clermont County Emergency Management Agency. Item number 14 is a recommendation of Pam Haverkos, the Director of the Clermont County Emergency Management Agency, with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to nominate Hannah Lubers for appointment to serve on the Clermont County Local Emergency Planning Committee, representing the discipline identified as environmental, as approved by the Clermont County Local Emergency Planning Committee on January 24th of 2019. Effective for January 24th, 2019 through August 14th of 2019, pursuant to and in compliance with Section 3750.03B of the Ohio Revised Code. So Hannah will replace Paul Brosh, who retired last year, in January. And the reason that we're only having our membership to August is because we'll be coming back to the board in August to secure the membership for the entire LEPC for the next 2-year cycle. So,
Okay. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 14. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 15. Thank you.
Thank you.
Morning, Judy.
Good morning. Judy Eschman, Director of Job and Family Services. Item 15 is my recommendation with the concurrence of Thomas J. Eigel, County Administrator, to reappoint the following representatives to serve on the Clermont County Family Services Planning Committee for the term of July 1, 19 through 6/30, 2021, for the purpose of gathering public input and reviewing and making program recommendations in developing and maintaining a community plan to implement Ohio Works First pursuant to and in compliance with Section 329.06 of the Ohio Revised Code, and for programs established under Chapter 5107, Ohio Works First Program, and Chapter 5108, Prevention, Retention, and Contingency Program of the Ohio Revised Code. And the three appointments are Gretchen Beheimer with Family and Children First, Karen Scherer with the Mental Health and Recovery Board, and Dan Odke with the Board of Developmental Disabilities.
Thanks, Judy. Board, you've heard the reading of item number 15. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thanks, Judy. Item number 16.
Morning.
Morning.
Doug Royer from the Clermont County Engineer's Office. Item number 16 is a recommendation of Pat Munger, County Engineer, concurrence of Tom Igle, County Administrator, to execute an amendment to the contract for minor public improvement projects by and between the Board of County Commissioners of Clermont County and Scioto Valley Precast out of Chillicothe, Ohio, as previously ratified by the Board of County Commissioners on November 7th, 2018, for the manufacture and assembly of the concrete box culvert for project number G0-10-18 relative to the Woodville Pike Bridge replacement located in Goshen Township, which represents an increase of $3,944 for a total adjusted contract price to date of $47,908 for additions, deletions, and or modifications thereto as defined therein, and contingent upon the release of a purchase order.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 16. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the
Been
motion.
moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thank you. Item 17.
Good morning.
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 Yvonne Smith, Benefit Plan Coordinator, Clermont County. This is my recommendation with concurrence of Thomas J. Igle, County Administrator, to authorize David L. Painter, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute tuition assistance applications submitted by the following employee for participation in the Clermont County Tuition Assistance Program. Pursuant to Section 4.12 of the Clermont County Personnel Policy and Procedures Manual, that employee is Mindy Latchman, and she has applied for 3 classes: the laws of evidence, public administration, and abnormal psychology in the workplace.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 17. Do I have a motion for approval?
I will make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Yvonne.
Thank you.
Item number 18.
Item 18 is a recommendation to authorize David L. Painter, President of the Board of County Commissioners, to execute a letter of intent to renew the contract for services with Greater Cincinnati Behavioral Health Services for the operation of the Clermont County Community Alternative Sentencing Center for the period of June 3rd, 2019 through June 2nd, 2020. And this is pursuant to and in compliance with Section 3 of the Contract for Services ratified by the Board on 5/30/2018, and this would represent the first of 4 additional one-year renewal options.
Board, you've heard the reading of number 18. Do I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Painter?
Yes. Item number 19.
Morning, Mary Raines, Office Manager at the Budget.
Morning.
Item 19 is a request to increase the 2019 appropriation in general fund for $7,400 to building inspection, other expenses for a refund of a permit from last year, and to authorize the auditor to record the same in the ledger.
Board, you've heard the reading of item number 19. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Tom, there any additions to the agenda today?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I was advised we no longer there's a need for executive session by the prosecutor's office.
Okay. No need for item H. We will move right to item number I, county staff elected official discussions. I understand that we have some people to address the board.
Yeah, I want to, Kathleen, if you hold just a second, I want to let Lyle go ahead. And I know he has a meeting this afternoon, but he wants to give us an update on the water main break that happened last
Okay.
evening.
So you may be aware we had 2 water main breaks yesterday on Branch Hill Guinea Road. This was the first main break occurred early in the morning, and I'll walk through a timeline in a minute, but this was just northwest of Wards Corner Road on Branch Hill Guinea Road. Anytime we have a water main break in that area, there's very limited valves along this it's a 1959 10-inch cast iron water main. We've got a valve at Branch Hill Miamiville Road and a valve just southeast of Wards Corner Road. So anytime we have a main break on that area, close those 2 valves and it takes out everybody in between. So that takes out a portion of Miami Trails subdivision, Belmead subdivision, all the side streets, Winding Woods, Winfield Hills, Arborcrest, Lewis, Epworth. Probably in the neighborhood of 400 customers it takes out of service. So I'll walk through the timeline for yesterday. About 3:45 a.m. we had we dispatched our first responders. Our water treatment plant operators noticed our tank levels dropping rapidly, which indicates a water main break. So they were dispatched at about 3:45. At 5 a.m. yesterday, they located the main break. Again, that was located just northwest of Wards Corner on Branch Hill Guinea. They shut the water off. They shut the water off about 6:45. They were trying to keep it on as long as they could to allow people to get their showers, because they'd already called in for oops. You have to wait 2 hours for the locators to come out before you can even dig. So a lot of customers might drive by and see our guys standing there. That's what they have to do for 2 hours, as they're waiting for the utility locates to be made. At 7:30, they were able to start digging. They dug. They found there was about a 6-foot split in the 10-inch pipe, so they had to replace about 8 feet of the pipe. When they were doing that, we went ahead and installed a new 10-inch valve at that location. They had the pipe open. It was shut down anyway to help reduce the area that would be impacted if there were future breaks. So they installed the new valve then. At about 12:45 yesterday afternoon, they began feeding the water main. The repair was complete. They started opening valves. They have to open valves very slowly and feed air from the Branch Hill Miamiville side of the system to push any air out of the system and get the air out, because that'll create other issues if air remains in the water line. So it's sometimes a slow fill, and they've got hydrants open to get all the air out. At about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, so an hour and 15 minutes later, all the valves were open and back to normal. And then they continued flushing hydrants from 12:45 to 3 p.m. The maintenance crews, they leave it, they work 7 to 3:30, so they left, went home at 3:30. Between 4:45 and 5, we had a report of another main break. At 6, our crews confirmed the main break about, I don't know, I'd say 8 to 10 feet away from the previous one. Yeah, so it wasn't their repair that was the problem. It was a new hole in the old main. At 8 p.m., they had dug down, located the hole, and they were able to just use a repair band on this repair. It wasn't a big split, it was just a hole. So they were able to get that complete about 8:30. And then again, they began filling and flushing the hydrants. So about 10:30, all the valves.
They had another valve now that could shut off.
Well, no, it was only 8 feet away, so really it wasn't any purpose. Now, with that new valve, the second main break that occurred, we didn't impact the Belmead subdivision and Almerhurst Lane or Almerhurst Drive area. So
the
also
valve did
Wardswood, yeah, that helped with that second main break, but we still got Miamiville and Winding Woods and Winfield Hills and all those other subdivisions. So they, about 11:30 last night, the flushing was complete, and all the customers were back in service. So we're continuing to deal with customer calls and complaints and concerns today. We had a couple customers that still had reduced water pressure. I think a lot of it was the tanks were still filling. And then we had some that their lines had airlocked because there was air trapped in the line. We had to go out and bleed the air off at their meter tap to get them back in service. What we plan to do, we're looking to install some additional valves besides the one we installed. We hope to use a insert a valve technology, because to install a traditional valve, you got to shut the main down, which is going to take all those people back out of service again. With the insert a valve, it's basically like a wet tap that they can do and install a valve. It's expensive, but we're going to get those installed. Probably at least 2. We're looking at different locations to help minimize the impact if there's a future main break. We don't have this section of Ward's Corner Road in our capital improvement plan for replacement at this time, so we'll have to look at main break frequency and where that would fit in our budget. We do have plans to replace, I'd say, everything else southeast of Ward's Corner Road along Branch Hill Guinea. As the TID and the engineer's office has done intersection improvements, like at Cook and Weber last year along Branch Hill Guinea, they did a big intersection improvement, and we replaced all the water main there. They did improvements up at 28 in Branch Hill Guinea a couple years ago. We replaced all that main. And then at Ward's Corner and in Branch Hill Guinea, they replaced that a few years ago. So we've got these pockets in between, and our plan was, we had those projects planned to replace those sections. The engineer's office notified us late last year that they plan to repave Ward's Corner or Branch Hill Guinea Road. So we moved that project up. We're under design. We're almost complete with design. Our plan is to replace those sections before fall of next year, when the engineer's office will be out there paving.
What's the age of that water main along that area?
It's a 1959 cast iron.
Yep.
And we've got older mains. We've got some 1954, but it's that cast iron. It's that era water main. I mean, there's areas, the Village of Batavia has mains that are older than that, but they're thicker wall. That 1950s era cast iron main, it just had a thinner wall to it than some of the older water lines. So you may see, again, water lines that were installed in the 20s, like the Village might have, or in the 30s, that they don't have as many main breaks. But it's just, it's older, but it's a different type of material. It's got a thicker wall.
And I know I fielded one of those calls last evening and early this morning, and the issue wasn't the break there, and there really wasn't an issue. I got to talk to the gentleman this morning at another meeting, and all they wanted to try to make sure was that our answering service, when there's a break, has detailed information for them. I guess there were some calls that came in last night. The message machine wasn't on for emergency, and so it kind of just disconnected the person.
Yeah, I checked a little bit further into that, and what happens is if someone calls our customer service number, the 7970, they get options, and the first option is, if this is an emergency, press 1. Immediately they do that, and if it's a water emergency, they hit 1 again, I believe, and that sends them to our water treatment plant, where we have the one plant operator trying to address calls, and I'm sure he was overwhelmed. That's not on the county phone system, so we're checking to see if we can get that on the county phone system and give some other options at that point. But the 7970 number, our customer service number, the fourth option is for a list of active main breaks. So we're going to look at maybe moving those options around, because if it's a customer, you're out of water, you hear option 1 to report an emergency, you hit 1, and you never get to option 4 to find out, oh, there is a main break, and they're aware of it, and they're repairing it.
And he was very, very sincere when it came to his intention was just to inform us of, what information was available when you called.
Concern.
He totally understood the break. And one of the other things that you've talked about here that, I don't think everyone understands when you're dealing with the water system, all the things that have to be done, not only to get that work started and to perform it safely, depending on what kind of excavation is required, but just the sheer amount of work that has to go with replacing a large section of pipe, underground, especially at night, and then what it takes to bring it back up. All the flushing, all the chlorination, all the things that you have to check before you can tell your customers that it's good to go.
Yeah, we don't, again, they're very careful bringing those things back on because
Right.
they don't want to create another main break. That's
Correct.
They don't enjoy this any more than the customer.
Right, understood. Thanks, Lyle.
Kathleen, you have a request from the CVB?
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Kathleen Williams from the Office of Public Information, and I just wanted to come up here for a moment. A couple of weeks ago, I got a request from Sarah Gleason, who's the Marketing and Communications Manager for the CVB, and she is putting together a program for the U.S. Rowing National Championships, which are coming to Harsha Lake in July, and this is the first of 3 years that they'll be back here. And her program was going to include some letters from local officials, basically welcoming the competitors back here and the teams and the visitors. And so I crafted a letter on your behalf, and I wanted to come up here just to make sure that you were okay with the request and that you were okay with the language in the letter.
Okay, you want to read the letter?
Sure, I'd be happy to. To our visitors, on behalf of the residents of Clermont County, we are delighted to welcome the U.S. Rowing National Championship back to Clermont County. Lake Harsha in beautiful East Fork State Park is among the top competitive rowing sites in the United States. U.S. Rowing recognizes this, and we appreciate the collaboration between U.S. Rowing and the Clermont County Convention Visitors Bureau that resulted in an agreement that will bring the championship here through 2021. This event brings an influx of visitors into our county and greater Cincinnati. Not only does this provide a boost to the local economy, it also allows our visitors to spread the word. Beautiful Clermont County welcomes its guests with open arms. Good luck to all the competitors. We know we'll see some of you at the 2020 Olympics in Tokyo, but all of you, just by being here, have demonstrated remarkable ability and determination. We wish you the best. Sincerely, David L. Painter, President, Edwin H. Humphrey, Vice President, Claire B. Corcoran, Member.
Thank you.
It's really good.
Yeah, it's a nice letter. What is the, what's the desire of the board? This letter is okay for publishing?
Sure.
Okay.
Make
I
a
don't-
little more space for us to put our signatures
There's no
on
motion
there.
required
We're
for that,
in
is there?
good shape.
I'd make a motion just to go ahead and approve the letter.
Okay. I will ask for a motion to approve the letter.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
Been moved and seconded. Any further conversation or discussion? Good job, Kathleen.
Thank you.
Roll call, Judy.
I'm sorry, I got so carried away with the motion to approve the letter. Which one of you two, you did, I thought you did.
Yep.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Corcoran?
Yes.
Mr. Painter?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Finally, Commissioners, we have an update from Wade Grabowski on our Record Center. Wade?
Yahoo.
Again, as is typical, the next week and a half will be very, very busy up there. We got the water pits all in, water on, sewer on. You guys, just as I came down here, Lyle, we're putting the electronic meter devices in there. We too had a water main break this morning on Clermont Center Drive. Sorry about I'm going off schedule here a little bit. But Lyle's people were there like that. Unfortunately, the contractor that turned the fire suppression on yesterday at 3:30 is what caused that water main break. So, wasn't your problem. It was the actual record center. So, I've talked to that individual preferred fire, and I told him to expect a large bill. Suki taught me that. Just, it's a large bill. That's all you get. Anyway, if you've been up there recently, the hydro seeding has been completed. The asphalt was installed last Saturday with line striping on Sunday. They are currently, one of the problems that we've had is the whole Duke Energy. They want the electric to be put on, but I couldn't wait. So Monday, I gathered up all the subcontractors and said, you've heard of generators? You need to get them here. So right now, you're running 7 generators up there for the individual trades. The concrete grinding is taking place, so we can do the staining of the concrete. I mean, it looks like little elves up there right now. They're just grinding. The one problem I've had is the electrician who decided he thought he was going to wait until Duke was going to install everything on his panels and all. that didn't happen, so he's got 7 people up there now. So we've got some site work still to do. All that soil will start being removed on Monday. If you've been up there, you see all them berms that we're trying to dry out. That doesn't stay, that has to go. Fire suppression pressure test, which did pass, Lyle, yesterday, but unfortunately caused your water main break. Domestic water is on. The electric, like I said, was to the pit. That's already done. The HVAC natural gas pressure test was done yesterday. It passed as well. Fiber is scheduled for Monday or Tuesday. Casework is in already. I will not allow the furniture, Mary, Suki, to go in until it's here in Cincinnati, but we're not going to allow that to go in until we get that conditional occupancy. Seems like a far-fetched date when I tell you this, but next Friday is the conditional. I mean, that's when we do it. We start punch list items tomorrow, right after our regularly scheduled meeting, so there'll be a lot of activity up there in the next 7 to 10 days.
Oh, I agree with that statement.
Which one?
That's a far-fetched idea.
You don't think so? We'll,
no, I don't.
We will see, because this does have a performance on it too.
Mm-hmm. What's going on with the shelving? I understand that the shelving might be late as far as delivery. Is that correct?
I have not really been involved in the shelving, other than I did tell Michelle that I don't want to see the shelving until we've approved all of the concrete work that's going to be up there, the stained concrete. They're grinding it now. I came there about an hour and a half ago. They were about 20% done. They had 1 person working on the grinding. Now they have 3. So we need to get that ready. And you can't tell me that electricity is the problem. There's a generator. Go get it. Do your work. So, but I know that the shelving.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't hear of a delay. So if there's, I think it was scheduled what, first part of May?
I thought it was.
Do you remember?
I was up there 2 days ago.
Yeah.
2 days ago when I was up there, they had 5 people working. They had 2 electricians that were throwing whip connectors, and one guy was doing a little sweeping, and then there were 2 guys working on casework.
And it wasn't, let's see, we had that meeting at 3:30 or so. Yesterday, they had more. Today, they have more than ever.
Okay.
So you just have to keep on them. I know the foreman up there, I think they told us in the meeting, but 2 weeks ago, but he decided he's not with the company anymore.
Mm-hmm.
So they have a new gentleman from Perkins Carmack named Troy, who I just met the other day. He now understands the county's position on completion, and he wasn't really aware that there was a performance contract on this. So unless they want to pay some serious money, they'll have the substantial completion done by next Friday.
Okay.
But I do accept the challenge, Commissioner.
It's a good one.
Okay. Anything else? Questions?
Thank you for the
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Anything else to come before the board?
Sir?
Board members? Hearing none, I'll move to ask for a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Make the motion.
Second?
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, Judy.
Mrs. Corcoran? Yes. Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mr. Painter?
Yes. Thank you so much for coming today, and for those who are watching, we'll see you Monday. Thank you.